Hello, this is Required Fields, and right now I'm going to do another installment in my series Catalog Cripplers, where I discuss albums by metal bands that are known for having very negative consequences in a band's career. And when bands change, in my most recent video I discussed the album Made of Pain by Gladiator. I actually only own the album on cassette as opposed to CD because, here's the thing. The album has been out of print for over 20 years now at this point on CD, and earlier this year the band actually reissued Made of Pain on a very limited batch of presses on cassette as opposed to CD. So I decided to get the cassette press of it since I do have a player who plays cassettes, and it's what I had to settle with for the time being, although I'd like to get the CD version. But the CD version of Made of Pain and the band's debut album, Designation, go for over $400 on Discogs, and I'm not willing to pay that much money, so for the moment I just had to settle for the more affordable cassette pressing of the album. Anyways, after Made of Pain, however, Gladiator took an incredibly ridiculous change in terms of their sound, today I'm going to be discussing the third Gladiator album, titled Third Eye. And Gladiator on their released their debut album. They formed in 1988 and released their debut album Designation in early 1992. And the music video for the lead single for the song from the album, Profitable Losses, I read it was the very first video by a Slovakian metal band that ever gets played on MTV in the States. Of course, I actually live in Canada. We get much music, and I was only 6 when the album came out, so obviously I wouldn't know about this band back then, but it wouldn't be until many years later I learned about who this band was. But I don't know if much music ever aired it or not, but I remember watching their metal-oriented show Loud a lot when I was younger, and I never saw them play it there. But Gladiator and their first couple of albums were called the Slovakian Sepultura, and you can definitely hear that comparison when you listen to the first two albums. In fact, even the music video for Profitable Losses looks pretty similar to the music video for Dead Embryonic Cells by Sepultura. After the first two albums, Gladiator took an enormous change in terms of their sound. After the first two albums, which were extreme thrash metal-oriented albums, they went for a sound that was more along the lines of the grunge that was pretty popular at the time. After doing albums that were in the extreme thrash metal mold, they dramatically changed it. The album is more in common with groups like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Bush than it does does anything else. In fact, there's no way that you would believe, if you listen to Made of Pain, I could totally imagine people who bought Third Eye as a new release that were fans of Made of Pain and or Designation, listening to this and thinking, is this the same band? Or is this like a different band with the same name or something? Because there's no way that you would believe it was the same band if you had listened to the first two releases and then bought this one, especially if you had not been told about the change in sound. Listening to the album, I could hear a lot of Nirvana here and some Pearl Jam-ish moments, and I guess the hardest track on here would probably be Bad Bad Pig, which is a little bit hits up the pace a bit more. It has more of a slight punkish influence to it. That's probably about as aggressive as the album actually gets. But some bands change for various reasons. Some bands just don't want to do the same thing over and over again throughout their career. Some bands that does kind of work for, and some bands it does not work for at all. Other bands change because they have lineup changes, and sometimes a band member who might have actually changed, who actually might have wrote the material, might have left the band in some cases, and they might have actually. And some of the newer members might bring some different ideas to the fold. Some bands change because the record label kind of talks them into doing so. But listening to this album, of course, this is very, very, very far from the Sepultura-inspired thrash metal that you actually got in the first two releases. Like I said, it's more uncommon with groups like Nirvana and Bush and Pearl Jam than it does anything else. No resemblance to the first two albums whatsoever. Now, I understand some bands have some varied influences, and if, but the thing is, though, Gladiator changed so much that I think that they really should have just changed the name of the band, because it just really wasn't the same band anymore. I looked up and I realized one lineup change that they actually had during this era. The bass player left the band, and anyways, but the other, but they've had a few people who have been in the band the whole time. So either way, my point is there sometimes when a change is just too drastic, I think it's a much better idea for you to actually just change the name of the band, because it's just not, because there's no way you can tell anyone that Third Eye was the next logical step after the first two Gladiator albums, Designation and Made of Pain. And I actually have heard hardly anything from the albums that Gladiator would do after Third Eye, but from people who have actually heard more of the stuff, Third Eye is actually the heaviest thing that Gladiator have actually done beyond Made of Pain. After Made of Pain, in fact, their later material gets even less hard sounding, actually, or and less aggressive sounding than the first two albums. In fact, I looked up the band's Spotify page, and you get their most of their albums, but Designation and Made of Pain aren't there. But yeah, this is definitely an instance where a band changed too much and really should have, if they wanted to play that type of stuff, if they like that type of stuff, I respect their opinion, but thing is, when a band changes this drastically, at least they should probably change the name of the band to not so as to not really alienate the people who actually like what they were doing before so much. Sometimes change is gradual over the years, and sometimes it's just way too abrupt, and this is about as abrupt as it gets. And anyways, so yes, that's the newest installment in my Catalog Cripplers series, Gladiator with Third Eye, and yeah, hard to believe that this is the same band that put out Designation Made of Pain, and hopefully those first two albums will be reissued on CD format, or if you're one of those people who use this in vinyl format, hopefully for your sake it'll be reissued on there at some point in the not too distant future. At least the fact that Made of Pain was reissued on cassette gives some hope that a CD pressing is in the pipeline. Okay, and anyways, yeah, so that's Gladiator Third Eye in my Catalog Cripplers series. Anyways, this is Required Field signing off, and goodbye.